Okay, so today I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of how to use DDRescue GUI, and I'll walk you through the options as well. So what we're going to do is I have a perfectly working USB stick which I can show you with this, which I can demonstrate this working with, and I also have a scratched optical disc so I can show you what you might expect to happen when things don't work. So that's good. But we'll start with the USB stick first. So if I start DDRescue GUI, I need to move the window over to this side. Okay, so I need to enter my password, so I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so we'll gather some disk information and then you'll just get taken to this screen. So if you want to select your source and destination, you might think, what are all of these? These will look a bit different on macOS because they'll be /dev/disk and then numbers. But if you click on disk information, which is either here or in the menu here, it will tell you some information about each disk, so you can figure out which one is which. So you can see in here I have a Samsung SSD 860, which is my main drive, a hard drive, and here is my flash disk that I want to do the test with. So I know that that's SDE now and that it has a partition on it. So you can pick either depending on what you want. So I'm just going to go with the whole drive now for this one. And then you can specify your log file, or no, the map file now, it used to be called a log file. So if I just stick it on my desktop, then I can call it, I'll just call it testlog.log. That can go there, and my destination can also be on the desktop, that's fine. So I will call it test.img, that's fine. So those are your basic three settings. But before you can start the recovery, you'll need to have a look at these as well. So the first one of these options is called, it's called Use Direct Disk Access. And what that does is, if you have a highly damaged disk where it can't read very large parts of the disk that it can't read, then what you can do is, if you turn this option on, it will allow it to scrape a little bit more off the data off, but it might slow it down. Normally I'd just leave that on though. You also have a read backwards option. So what that means is, instead of reading from the start of the disk till the end, it will read from the end and then backwards to the start, which can be helpful if there's a lot of damaged areas on the start of the disk that are slowing it down and you think your disk might break soon. There's also a pre-allocate option to make sure you have enough space on your output disk. There is a soft run option which tells it to quit rather than attempt to read the bad areas of the disk, so it will just skip over them and then stop. And there is an overwrite output file or disk option, which you can use if, instead of doing what I'm doing, so what I'm doing is I'm taking an image of my USB drive and sticking it on my desktop, but if instead you're copying everything to another USB drive, then you'd want to turn this on to enable that and to allow you to do that. So then the remaining three options are number of times you want to retry bad sectors, which you can specify anywhere from no times to forever, but 2 times is probably good, because once it's tried twice it's probably not going to be able to read anything else. A maximum number of errors before exiting. You can set this if you want to, if you're impatient and you want to try and change the settings after a certain number of errors have occurred, but the default is infinite for that. Have a number of clusters to copy at a time. This setting doesn't impact the success of your recovery, but on certain kinds of device it can be quicker to set this to a high or a low value. The default I've left at 128, which is fine most of the time, but if it's slow, then you could try and change it to 256 or 32, but we'll just go with 128. So then there are these 3 presets, and they change these 3 options. So if I set it to the best recovery, it will try and use fewer clusters, which can make it a bit slower, but you might have them all like on some devices. Balanced is what we've just seen, and if you set it to the fastest option, it won't try reading any bad sectors, and it will try and copy as many clusters at a time, which is generally quicker, but not always, but the general rule is that's quicker. So we'll just go with balanced and leave the rest of the options as they are for this one. So remaining things to explain are So there is a user guide online which you can access here. If you want to check what version of the GUI you're running, you can click here. I'll tell you some other stuff as well. So just open these two and we'll hit start. I'll need to enter my password again, so I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so password is entered and we are underway. So if you want a nice simplistic view of what's going on, you can close both of these. It will just tell you how long it's taken, how long it thinks it will take, and your progress. And then in the status bar here you can see what it's doing. And that information will change if it has to retry areas of the disk. If you want some more information, you can open the detailed information pane, which will tell you exactly how much data it's recovered, how much it hasn't been able to read, the current read rate, the average rate, how many bad sectors there are, position on the disk, and the time since it last managed to read anything, which is normally quite a useful metric, because sometimes you'll find you just get stuck, say your drive overheats or something if it's a hard drive, or it just encounters too many errors and gives up. So then you might want to stop your recovery and start it again once it's cooled down. If you want more information than that, you can open the terminal output, which will tell you stuff like the version of DDRescue you've got, how much data it's going to copy, some of the settings. And you'll see much the same information as here, but depending on your version of DDRescue you might see some more. So here I also have error rate, for example, and I also have the number of bad areas, which are like groups of bad sectors, and the total number of read errors it's encountered. Because this disk is fine, I'm expecting it to just finish this pretty quickly and it should just work, and that'll be fine. In the meantime, there is also a feature to check for updates, which it does on startup. So if there's a new version of the GUI that fixes some issue, that might be helpful. If it finds anything, it will pop up with this dialog on startup and tell you that there's a new version and tell you what's new. But the rest of the time, it will just not do anything apart from send you a notification if everything is fine. So we will skip to the end here, rather than make you wait another couple of minutes for this to finish. Okay, so we're coming up to the end here. You can see it looks fine, there haven't been any unreadable data, there haven't been any bad sectors, and the read rate is pretty high. So when it finishes, you will see finished there, and you'll get a dialog here telling you, so in this case all data has been recovered, and then it will say we may now use DDRescue GUI to mount the file or the drive so we can access the data. Okay, it will tell you some other stuff. If you've aborted it, it will tell you that, and if it hasn't managed to read everything, it will tell you. So then you get this little dialog which will tell you how much it's managed to read and where the data is. So if you want to access your files now, you can hit mount, and I need to give it my password, so I'll just pause quickly. Okay, so if you specified a partition, it will just mount it and tell you where to find it. In my case, I specified the whole device, SDE, rather than SDE1, so it will list all the file systems here on that drive. In this case, there's only one, so I can just hit OK, and it will mount it. So it tells me it's mounted there. So if I open my file manager, which is here, then I can see in that we need to go to /mount. Sometimes this will appear on your desktop. So if you're running this on macOS, you will just get a drive icon on your desktop and on certain Linux distributions. So I'll just go to mount, and then it is /dev/mapper loop0 partition1. And that is the file I put on the USB stick to demonstrate where the data would be if there was any. So let's say I've copied this off to my desktop. So I've got the data. I can then close that and hit unmount, and then I'll enter my password again. Okay, so I've entered my password and it's unmounted it, and we are done. So I will now switch. Okay, so this is getting long, so I'm going to split this into two videos. The next video is going to be called Part 2, and it will involve almost the same process, but it will also demonstrate how to restart the recovery if it's not working, and it will show you what you might expect to see if you have a damaged disk. So I will be back with you in a second.